Welcome. I'm Annie Moyer from Sun and Moon Yoga Studio, and this is about planting seeds. I am recording this in the height of spring. It's the middle of May. It's planting season here in the DC metro area, and I'm reminded that yoga practice really does mimic the steps we take when we're planting a garden. And so by this I mean you think about what you do. First, you have to choose with intention what seeds you're going to plant, what you want to give rise to give life to. And then you have to clear the space, and then you have to find correct placement for what you're choosing to grow. So you find the spot in the ground and the place where the light is going to be correct. And then you have to get in deep. You have to dig your holes, set down the roots, and then it's patience. It's all about waiting. Nature doesn't make her magic on our timetable. It makes it on hers. And so with patience and presence, we see what we've given life to. And this is what yoga practice feels like for me. And so I'll invite you to explore that with me. We'll start in hero pose. So I've got a block and a blanket. So the block is to raise the floor a little bit, and the blanket is to provide a little bit of softness. And I'm going to take my ankles and put them on either side of that support and bring my knees as close together as it's comfortable. And then I'm just going to wriggle in. So noticing what these steps feel like in your body as if you are planting seeds right now. And what is the intention that you are bringing to this process? What is the thing that you'd like to give life to? What is the thing that you would like to experience growing and thriving inside of you? So we've cleared the space, and then we've placed appropriately. Some For some people, knees together and toes pointing straight back doesn't feel quite right. It's not the right place in the garden that's going to nurture good, healthy life. And so you might have knees apart a little bit. You might have ankles a little wider. Feel what feels right to you. Sense into and feel in your body, what is the placement that I've chosen and does it feel correct? And then dig in. Make the space in the earth, root down. I can feel my sitting bones supported, dropping down. Whatever support you have under you, you want to feel it evenly underneath each sitting bone, right side, left side, so that there's a descending quality of rooting. And then you correspondingly feel the space you're making inside the body rising up through the spine. And within that space that you've created, you can feel the breath moving. And the breath makes its way through, and we cultivate the patience required. The patience required to watch what unfolds from that earth that we have cultivated. Just a few breaths. And when we notice the mind wandering, which it does all the time, traveling out to other gardens, other places with impatience or distraction, we bring it back and then we recreate, reset, remind ourselves what is the intention? What am I choosing to cultivate here in my garden? Have I placed myself appropriately, safely, comfortably? Have I made enough space inside for breath and energy to flow? And do I have the patience? Can I wait? Ultimately, we all realize we don't have a choice. Things happen in their own time. All right, so take your arms up in a nice deep breath. Reach up tall, lace your fingers together, and then flip your palms and press up as high as you can. Remembering not to uproot anything that's been planted intentionally. So keeping the sitting bones grounded, rooted, stable, and rising up through the center of the pelvic floor. And then take the body over into a gentle side stretch, not sacrificing any of the space that you've made inside. And with patience to see how far the side body wants to and is willing to stretch. And then come back up and gently, patiently, with space, reaching over to the other side. And then come back up. And then release the arms down gently, softly, letting them release to the sides. Okay. Let's do that again. Inhale, reach up, lace the fingers together, press up toward the ceiling, lifting and growing without uprooting the seeds that we've planted through the base of the pelvis. And then reaching sideways and back up and over to the other side and back up. And then undo the hands, float them down. One more time. Reach up nice and tall, lace the fingers together. If flipping the palms doesn't feel right in the wrists or the shoulders, not necessary. Just reach like this, the backs of the hands facing the sky. Back up and over and back up and release down. So, a really safe and simple way to come out of hero pose is to move into downward facing dog by just crawling your hands forward, rising up into table pose, tucking the toes, lifting the hips, and stretching back. So I'm going to turn sideways. Downward facing dog, beautiful place to think about planting down, getting deep in the roots of the edges of the palms and the mounds of the toes. Don't worry about the heels hitting the floor. For most people, they really just don't, and it's not necessary. Making space in the spine by lifting the sitting bones nice and high. And breathing along the long, open, spacious column of the torso, from the crown of the head all the way to the sitting bones and back. Lots of freedom inside the dog pose to bend the knees and slide the hips back and up, to pedal out the feet, alternating left and right side, to swing and sway the hips and circle them around. And then as you're ready, float the knees down to the ground in table pose. And in table pose, again, the planting downward through the edges of the palms at the base of every finger, and then down from the hips into the knees. And now adding the rounding of the spine up like a rainbow and shifting the arch down from the mid-spine like a hammock. And here employing patience as you shift from one shape to the next. You've planted the seeds, you've rooted down into the ground through the palms and from the hips to the knees, from the shoulders to the wrists. You've made space in the spine. You've created the intention of the shapes that you're choosing to create, the thing that you're seeking to cultivate inside, and then moving with gentle patience and ease. And now from here, make your way down onto your belly in whatever way makes sense for you, gliding forward, stretching the legs back, pointing the toes. Lower your belly, your chest, and your forehead to the floor. Keep the hands planted. Keep the rooting happening through the edges of the palms. Hug your elbows in next to the side ribs. Float your chest forward and gently raise it up into cobra. The patience is the thing that allows us not to go too far. So we don't want to sacrifice any of the space that we've made in the lower back. Just coming in and out of it, rising up, nice long breath in, and descending back down, smooth exhale out. Shifting up and down, in and out of the cobra, patience is paramount to see what may begin to bloom and blossom through the heart. I mean, you might choose to hold it for a few breaths. You might re-emphasize in your awareness the pelvis rooted down, anchoring the lower back. And then come out when you're ready. And then push back into table pose. Tuck your toes again and lift into downward facing dog, stretching back, making space, cultivating patience, waiting to see what arises. Long breaths. And the breath is the bellwether for whether patience is present and space is maintained. Come up high on your toes and start to walk your feet forward. And then just roll up to stand slowly, easy, and face the long side of your mat and take your feet out nice and wide. And then turn one foot out 90 degrees and take the other heel and move it away from the midline out to the edges. Take your arms out wide. Bend your knee and sink the hips evenly straight down into a warrior pose. So when you're planting, you want to make sure that the base is descending into the earth that you've cultivated, that little space that you've dug out for the plant to sink into. So you don't want it lopsided. You want the hips even here in warrior pose, arms out wide, and you can turn the gaze out toward your front hand and the bending knee, just as far as the neck easily will turn. Long, deep breaths, patience, steady ground from the evenly dropping pelvis down and out through both legs into the carefully placed feet. And then tip backwards, reach your back hand toward the back leg, take the top arm up and lift the heart. So a little bit of blossoming upward from the heart center as you reach back with the top arm. Nice long breaths. The maintenance of space inside is what prevents us from overarching and straining or compressing in the spine. And now unwind and straighten the front leg and strategically turn the feet to the other side. So the other heel comes back, the new foot out 90 degrees to face the short edge of the mat. Bend the knees and, and feel the sitting bones descending evenly toward the ground, keeping the knee steady over its own ankle, centered. Float the arms out, turn the head to cast the gaze sideways, and breathe. And with patience, waiting and watching to see what blossoms, to see what new growth might arise. Maybe what we're looking for is physical growth of strength or flexibility. Maybe what we're looking for is mental growth, an opening of the mind to new possibilities and ideas. Maybe it's psychosocial growth to cultivate and grow compassion and patience for other people. And maybe it's spiritual or energetic growth to enliven and to wake up insight, intuition, connection in the spirit. And now tip back without compressing, without sacrificing any of the space that you've created. Lifting through the heart, descending through the pelvis, anchoring through both legs. And then unwind and straighten the front leg. Now turn your feet so they're parallel to each other. Hands on your hips, press down. Inhale, lift the heart up, lean back just a little bit, keeping the hips centered, and then fold forward. Wide-legged fold. And walk the hands out in front of you. Keep the hips centered between the feet and the legs. Drop the pelvis, drop the chest and the torso down as far as it will go, and extend your arms out as far as they will go. And let your head come in line with your arms. Now we're in a wide-footed dog pose. We are still rooted through the feet. We are still making space through the spine. We are intentional about the placement of our bodies and our minds and our breath. And we are patient with what arises. Now shift forward. So the hips come a little forward, but the feet stay where they are. So don't lift the heels even if it's tempting. Keep the heels rooted. Those seeds that we've planted, they want to stay deep in the earth. Shifting forward until your shoulders are roughly over your wrists. And then round the spine so the mid spine rises and the Sitting bones and tail tuck a little bit, head hangs. And then shift the arch so the mid-spine drops. The sitting bones peek up toward the sky. The heart peeks out in front. Do this a few more times. And then shift back, reaching the hips back so that they're centered again between the legs and feet. And dropping the chest back so the heart is open and it's looking at the space that's open up behind you. And then shift forward again, just enough to walk the hands back slightly, give a little bend in the knees, and then step, hop, or jump the feet together. And then come up so that you're just in a halfway fold. I'm going to turn sideways and grab a block. It's nice to have something to put your hands on a little higher than the floor. So we're in a half forward fold, looking for a little bit of a concave spine as opposed to a rounded one or a flat one. A little bit of a concave, an arch. And breathe and feel what's still rooted deeply in the earth. What have you planted in the physical body? What are you seeking to cultivate and grow in the physical body, in the psycho-emotional body, in the spirit, in the mind? Rooting down through the edges of the feet, feeling the base of each toe like its own separate seed planted deeply, rooted down with care and intention. And now round the back a little bit, bend the knees, and if you have a wall to lean against, find a wall or the edge of a piece of furniture. I'm going to turn it and put my hips by the window so that the feet are a little bit out in front of your hips, and then lean forward. And then hang. And if you don't have a wall by you, it's fine. You can just do this standing on your mat, holding the elbows. We're going to swing a little bit from side to side. So right now my hips are against the window, but I could also do this with my knees bent, just hanging the head. Deep breaths. And then bend the knees and slowly drop your hips down to the ground. Right? If you have a block handy or a blanket or a stack of blankets or a couple of pillows, grab those now. We're going to move into a supported bridge pose. So in the bridge, we lie down, knees are bent, feet are on the floor. First, we plant those seeds. First, we set down the anchored, rooted parts of the body, the feet and the shoulders, forming the two edges of the bridge. And then with some sort of support nearby, if you have it, pressing into those four planted seed points, 2 feet, 2 shoulders, rising up through the hips, slide the prop underneath you. Put it only as high as it's comfortable. Make sure that there is space maintained in the long central column of the spine, from base to crown. Make sure the spaces, the natural spaces in the body are preserved, the curves in the spine, particularly at the back of the neck, keeping that natural curve moving away from the floor. Long, slow breaths. Sometimes it feels nice if the shoulders are fairly open to squeeze the elbows in closer, to turn the shoulders back a little further and see if your fingers touch each other on the opposite side of the prop if you have one. And press the forearms and elbows down. Long breaths, reveling in the space that you've created and taking comfort in the patience that you cultivate. Make it an easy place to be. There doesn't have to be striving or grasping here. And what if we lived a life where there was very little striving and grasping, but quiet, intentional patience? Continual seeking of space. And then the celebration when the plant gives fruit to the thing that we were seeking all along. So root into the feet and the shoulders, lift up a little higher away from whatever support may be underneath you. Remove that off to the side for the moment. And then keeping long space in the spine, reaching towards your heels as you roll slowly back to the ground. So what we're looking for next is something to support the upper back. We're going to do a supported back bend with the legs straight. So I'm going to sit up for a moment and show you. I'm going to use the block and I'm going to put it right, it's going to go on the floor right under my shoulder blades where the bra strap crosses across the back. A block works for this, and so does a thin rolled up blanket. So any kind of narrow, wide support. And when you lie down over it, you want to make sure that the tops of your shoulders can drop off the back and the legs can straighten out and there's no strain in the spine. And I'm holding my head as I drop my head back. And if it feels like it's a long way down to the floor for my head to drop, I'm going to hold my head with my hands, put a blanket or some other soft layer underneath for the head so that I can lie back with ease and reach the arms back. You can have the arms out to the sides, but what you don't want to do is to drop the elbows so low that the shoulders end up poking up and forward. So have the arms in any position that allows the shoulders to drop back. I'm going to take this out from under my head, drop the head way back, and reach the arms way back behind me. You can lace your fingers together here. You can have the arms straight up toward the ceiling or the sky, letting in space and light, keeping anchored through the seeds that you've planted. The back of the pelvis is one seed dropping down, and the heels, another area of root. I'm just showing you all the different possible arm positions. No strain allowed in the lower back, none at all. Just easy space where you can cultivate patience and watch nature's magic unfold. So to come out of this, you hold your head in your hands, lift the head gently, bend the knees, and then just roll to the side and come up slowly. And take the props to the side. Take the feet over to one side of your hips and straighten up the spine. So one sitting bone is going to be feel like it's uprooted. Let it drop. It's not going to touch the ground, but allow it to move in that direction. And then turn the chest away from the feet for an easy twist. And then release. Hands in front, lift up your hips, center the knees, swing your feet to the other side, and drop the other hip down. The sitting bone that's floating away from the ground, understand it won't touch the ground, but let it drop towards the ground. And then turn your chest the other way. Slow, patient breath. Easy space inside. And now release the twist, and this time swing the legs out in front of you again. Lie back once more. Pull the knees into the chest. And then hold behind your knees and pull the knees toward your chest and then out a little bit away from each other toward the shoulders. So knees are going out and down. Now flex your ankles and raise your shins until they're vertical. And keep pressing the knees down toward the shoulders as the soles of your feet are peeking up facing the ceiling. You can keep your hands here behind the knees for that extra pressure downward. You can reach your hands up for your ankles, grab hold of your ankles and pull down. Or you can reach the outer edges of your feet and press the feet down like levers. So regardless of where your hands are, the feet are turned up toward the ceiling, the knees are dropping down toward the shoulders, and the lower back is fairly neutral. So we don't want a big rounded flat lower back into a rolled spine. We want a fairly neutral spine, seeking a little bit of space under the lower back and a dropping of the sitting bones. And this is happy baby pose. So you can imagine that the soles of your feet are the greenery of the thing that you've planted. The seed has given life to something that's open and blooming toward the sun. And then gently release, hug the knees in and circle them around a few times in each direction. And then pause with your feet on the ground. Observe the breath. With patience, roll to your side and come up to sit. Cross your ankles and your shins. Sit tall through the spine. We've made space in the body. And once again, arranged the skeleton in a deliberate way here in a cross-legged seat. Planting down through the base of the torso. Creating space in the rest of the body to rise up and make way for breath. And then we wait with patience. We watch what blooms. Bring your palms together. Thank you so much for joining me today. check out the rest of our spring planting series this week. Namaste.